Sweet surrender. Love softens fear. This is a story about a chocolatier who believes every batch must be perfectly controlled before it can become beautiful. When an unexpected mistake threatens her finest creation, she discovers that surrender is not giving up, but releasing fear long enough for love to reveal another way. In the little town of Bellafleur, everyone knew the scent of Amélie's chocolate shop: orange peel, roasted hazelnuts, cinnamon, dark cocoa warming over copper pots. People said you could walk into the shop carrying a terrible day and leave remembering something sweet. But Amélie herself was rarely relaxed. She measured everything twice. Chocolate had to reach the exact temperature. Cream had to be poured at the exact moment. Truffles had to be perfectly round. "If I stay in control," she often said, "nothing goes wrong." Her assistant, Luca, usually smiled. "Does anything ever go right without your permission?" Amélie never found that funny. Every spring, Bellafleur held a celebration called the Festival of Lanterns. For this year's festival, Amélie planned her greatest creation yet: a towering chocolate garden filled with roses, butterflies, birds, and a fountain made entirely of dark chocolate. For 3 weeks, she barely slept. "Careful! Not there! Too warm! Too fast! Start again!" Luca noticed that the more beautiful the garden became, the less joy Amélie seemed to have. The night before the festival, a storm rolled over Bellafleur. Rain hammered the windows, wind rattled the shutters. Then the electricity failed. The refrigerator stopped. The temperature inside the shop began to rise. Amélie lit candles and stared in horror as delicate chocolate flowers softened. One rose leaned sideways, then another. A butterfly lost a wing. "No," she whispered. She began rushing from tray to tray. "We can save it." Luca looked at the melting garden. "Maybe. Bring ice. There isn't enough. Open the windows. It's warmer outside." Amélie grabbed a rose and tried to straighten it. It collapsed in her hand. Her face tightened. "I ruined everything. The storm did this. I should have planned for it." "You planned for almost everything. Almost isn't enough." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Luca asked quietly, "What are you afraid will happen if the garden is gone?" Amélie stared at him. "That's obvious." "Is it?" She looked toward the window. "They'll be disappointed. And then they'll think I failed. And then," her voice dropped, "maybe they'll discover I'm not as good as they think." Luca nodded. There it was. The real thing melting in the room was not chocolate. It was the protection Amélie had built around an old fear. Years earlier, her father had taught her the craft. Whenever she made a mistake, he would patiently melt the chocolate and begin again. But Amélie remembered only her mistakes. She had quietly decided that being loved meant being flawless. Now she saw how much work that belief required. Every perfect truffle had become proof. Every compliment became something she had to defend. Every mistake threatened the identity she had built. Another chocolate flower folded over. Amélie closed her eyes. "What do we do now?" Luca grinned. "That is the first question you've asked all month instead of giving an order." She laughed, despite herself. Together they looked at what remained. Bowls of softened chocolate, broken wings, collapsed flowers, pools of dark milk and white chocolate mixing across trays. Amélie took a wooden spoon, then stopped. "I don't know what this is becoming," Luca said. They began again, not by recreating the garden, by using what was there. They swirled the different chocolates together without fully mixing them. Children from the neighborhood, drawn by candlelight, helped sprinkle nuts and dried fruit over great trays. An elderly baker brought sea salt. Someone arrived with strawberries. Another neighbor brought chili. Soon the shop was full of laughter. Nothing matched. Nothing was symmetrical. Nothing resembled the masterpiece Amélie had planned. At dawn, the storm passed. Instead of one perfect chocolate garden, the tables held hundreds of irregular pieces: marbled slabs, crooked clusters, unexpected flavors, little broken shapes that looked different from every angle. Amélie tasted one. Dark chocolate, orange, salt. A surprising flash of chili. She closed her eyes. "It's wonderful." Luca raised an eyebrow. "Even though you didn't control it?" "Especially because I didn't." At the festival, people crowded around the table. "What are these called?" someone asked. Amélie looked at the mismatched pieces. She smiled. "Sweet surrender." They disappeared within an hour. But something more important remained. After that day, Amélie still measured chocolate carefully. she still respected the craft. Surrender did not mean carelessness. It meant she stopped asking control to guarantee her worth. When a batch failed, she corrected it without condemning herself. When plans changed, she listened before resisting. When fear whispered, "Make this perfect, or love will disappear," she no longer automatically believed it. She had discovered that fear tightens its fist around life. Love opens the hand. And sometimes what appears to be falling apart is simply making room for something that could never have arrived through control. Years later, a small wooden sign hung above the copper pots. "Melt gently. Love needs no defense. May we sing, rest, and dance our way home together."